Names remain a controversial and hotly debated issue here in South Africa. Since 1994, there have been a large number of places in the country that have been renamed for political, ethnic, in some places even economic reasons. These name changes were at first to remove politically motivated, incorrectly spelt or offensive names, such as those named after apartheid leaders from the South African landscape. However, since the year 2000, name changes have targeted places of mostly Afrikaans, but in some cases also English-speaking origin, with many places now named after anti-apartheid activists. Now, war of words erupted in Cape Town around the renaming of streets and other public places. The proposed renaming of Table Bay Boulevard, in particular, after former President FW de Klerk, has sparked much controversy. Now, we are joined in Cape Town by Western Cape Provincial Secretary of Cosatu, Mr. Tony Ehrenreich, and then the chairperson of the naming committee, that's with the City of Cape Town, Mr. Brett Herron. A very good morning to you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us.
Morning.
Brett, if I can start with you, just set the scene for us. The name changes, especially the emotive one that's caused the stir, FW de Klerk, who I must add is still alive. Why the decision to honour him now?
Well, Eben, I think we must start by acknowledging that the decision is not final. It's a recommendation to Council from the naming committee.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to acknowledge that almost every single proposal we've taken to Council has resulted in a lot of emotion, and almost every proposal has had those who are opposed to it and those who favour it. So it's a difficult process to manage. And the results don't always please everybody. And that's why it's important that we focus on the process and making sure that the process is above board. We ensure that there's an adequate and comprehensive public consultation process. So even those who are not happy about the outcome will at least be able to say that the process was fair and they had an opportunity to influence the outcome.
Tony, if I can go to you, you've been a vociferous opponent of these changes. Tell us why, and also qualify the remarks that's been going around in the media around certain types of animals, baboons, the like.
Well, firstly, let me say that the question of the process is a non-issue in this respect. This is a matter where FW de Klerk is wanting to be honoured. FW de Klerk, if he was in any other country, would have been tried for war crimes or crimes against humanity. Here was a man that in 1993, before the Nobel Peace Prizes were awarded, but it was already indicated, he authorized the killing of people in Transkei. Mandela himself said on his way to Oslo that de Klerk has blood on his hands. How can we honor a man like this? And lest, how can we honor him in a way that wants to elevate him to the same level like Mandela? Whoever Mandela's negotiating partner was, and here the devil himself, or a monkey, was his negotiating partner, and he would also have got the Nobel Peace Prize, because that was a politically expedient decision by the Nobel Committee. What we have here is very different issues. And the worst point is that if de Klerk had had a miraculous change of view about his support and his role in the structure of apartheid, then he may have been worthy of consideration for something. But here's a man who in a recent interview tried to justify separate development and homelands. So there hasn't been a change of values from the day that he was a killer under apartheid. All he's done is he's been part of the negotiations to defend those things that were stolen under apartheid, and so that black people could get the minimum as part of the process of the change in the democratic structure of South Africa. So he's certainly not worthy of any kind of acknowledgement. If he's going to be acknowledged in any way, then he should get a side street in Constantia, because those are the people whose interest he defended in South Africa and in the negotiations. He's not concerned about all of the people. Mandela himself said that de Klerk is insensitive to the plight of black people. So I don't want to discuss the procedure that Brett's responding to. That's a non-issue. We're talking about the value system, the morals, and the very future of our country.
Within the context of that future, Tony, is reconciliation then dead? Are we not going to extend that olive branch even further, as we have to for the future of our children, if not ours?
Reconciliation is absolutely important, and we have to take it forward as a country. But reconciliation comes from both sides. Black people have acted magnanimously by making sure that all the crimes that white people have committed against them were forgiven. But the land theft, the marginalization, the exclusion, the lack of educational facilities, all those things that existed under apartheid still exist today. And people like de Klerk, through his de Klerk Foundation, is one of the most vociferous argumenters of ensuring that the apartheid generational advantages of white people stays in place. So if de Klerk wants to be part of the reconciliation agenda, he must promote the notion of us coming together, undoing the past, and build a country of greater equality. And so we can't acknowledge a man like that. And I would go further to say that all the DA is doing here, by acknowledging somebody like de Klerk, and de Klerk is the leader of the Nationals Party, like Theuns Botha is now part of the DA leadership, is to try and sanitize and make the DA and the National Party look better. Many of their members are one of the worst architects of apartheid, and now they're trying to do a spin job to make them look better. This is really atrocious. Let's focus on the key things of delivery that our people require, and not some silly process that's going to honor what is really a murder in any other country.
Brett, I want to come to you. I want you to respond to that, but before you respond to that, I want to ask you an even weightier question. Cape Town over the last year has been battling with racial incident after racial incident. The undertones of this discussion, does it not play into the hands of those that wish to racialize Cape Town? And should it not be maybe reconsidered?
Well, I don't think it plays into the hands of ordinary Cape Townians who are not racist. I think the opportunities to exploit this by some people are unfortunate. People are taking an opportunity to exploit this. I think the process that the city has followed in renaming in general has been to build this inclusive city. We are addressing the imbalance and the historical imbalance in place naming across our city, and we're doing it in a considered way where we are consulting with communities before we implement changes. So the city itself and the government is working towards building an inclusive city. As in all cities around the world, there are people on the fringes who are racist and act out on those attitudes. But the city government is not responsible for those individuals. Our role is to build the city of inclusivity.
Tony, I want to come to you quickly and talk about this issue of race in Cape Town. We've seen all these incidents, people being shambocked, urinated on, domestic workers being slapped around, kids assaulting older women. All these kinds of things have happened in Cape Town. How do you respond to that? Is Cape Town more racially segregated today than 20 years ago?
There's no doubt that it is, and there's no doubt that the leadership of the City of Cape Town and the provincial government pushes a racist agenda in the sense of defending the apartheid generational advantages. This process of name changing that Brett is mentioning is a nonsense, because look at where the black names are. Other than Mandela has got an important street name, the black names are out in the Cape Flats hidden away, whilst many of the white name changes are in the key parts of the city, and they defend many of the old architects of apartheid staying there. But look at how resources are allocated in the Cape Town, the portfolio that Brett's responsible for. Where's the best bus system in the city of Cape Town? In the old white area of Milnerton and Blouberg. That's where the city starts, that's where they focus. So they're creating the impression by their attitude that we're going to defend the apartheid generational advantages, we're going to try and keep the refugees out, and we're going to defend those people who historically our parties were part of defending. And by their actions and by their lack of condemnation strongly of these racist attacks and these racist behaviors, they're fueling it and they're endorsing it. And now they're putting the cherry on the top by honoring the arch-racist of apartheid and the arch-racist now FW de Klerk in this way, because that's the way in which they try to present how they're going to defend white people's interest at the cost of black people's interest and at the cost of greater equality and nation building, not only in the city of Cape Town and the Western Cape, but bringing all of our people together across the country. They're trying to divide the people because that's their political agenda, to try and hold on to power. And so it's not about anything that focuses on our people as a whole and taking our country forward where people move with greater equality.
Brett, final remarks belong to you this morning. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think the ANC locally has some clarity to find amongst themselves. You know, in 2000, when the ANC was in government and the mayor was Noma India Mfeketo, the ANC named a street after FW de Klerk in a mostly coloured area called West Bank. Even recently, as recent as Sunday, I think Trevor Manuel was trying to provide some leadership to the local ANC branches by indicating that former President Mandela regarded FW de Klerk as a man of integrity and indicated, as was reported, that he supported the name change. And then we even have councillors, at least one councillor that I'm aware of within the ANC caucus in the city of Cape Town, the caucus that Tony leads, who wrote in during the public consultation process to support the renaming. So it's an issue that is the ANC, I think, needs to find some clarity about where they stand on this. And I would urge them, in the interest of reconciliation, to support this.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. It's an issue that we will have another discussion on, I would like to have in the future, because it's such a dividing scenario playing out in Cape Town at the moment. But the backstory of it, of course, is that there are also issues with racial incidents and the like in Cape Town. It seems the city is more divided than ever. We'll keep you updated here on Newsroom. That was Tony Ehrenreich, of course, who is the Western Cape Provincial Secretary of Cosatu, and also Brett Herron, who's the chairperson of this renaming committee of street names in Cape Town. But let's have a look.